Cornell Medical School, to West Africa, to the vacuum of space, and back again. This is the story of a woman who decided, very early in her life, that the world's limitations were simply not her problem. October 17, 1956. Decatur, Alabama. Mae Carol Jemison entered the world as the youngest of 3 children, born to Charlie Jemison, a maintenance worker and carpenter, and Dorothy Jemison, an elementary school teacher of English and mathematics. It was 1956 in Alabama, which meant it was the American South, at the height of the Civil Rights era, just 2 years after the Supreme Court declared school segregation unconstitutional, in a state that was fighting that decision with everything it had. Dorothy Jemison looked at her 3 children and at the South and made a decision. When Mae was 3 years old, the family packed up and moved north to Chicago, Illinois. Chicago in the late 1950s was a city of extraordinary energy and extraordinary contradiction. It was the beating heart of Black American culture, jazz and blues clubs, and newspapers and universities. It was home to the South Side, one of the largest and most vibrant Black communities in the country. A place where Black Americans had built something extraordinary against the odds of segregation. But it was also a city of deep inequality, of housing discrimination, of neighborhoods where the National Guard sometimes patrolled the streets, of schools that were underfunded and overcrowded, of a world that had decided what a Black child from the South Side could reasonably aspire to be. The Jemisons settled first in the Woodlawn neighborhood, then moved to Morgan Park on the South Side. Dorothy Jemison taught at Beethoven Elementary School in Chicago's public system for more than 25 years. She came home from teaching other people's children, and she taught her own. Charlie Jemison took his children to the Museum of Science and Industry, to the Field Museum of Natural History, to the Adler Planetarium, where Mae would stand in the dark and look up at the projected night sky, at the stars as seen from the southern hemisphere, at what the sky looked like thousands of years ago. And something in her responded, not just with wonder, but with a deep, calm certainty. She told people she was going to go to space. She said it simply, the way a child says they will become a firefighter or a teacher, except Mae Jemison said it at an age when the astronaut corps was entirely white and entirely male. And she said it anyway. "I always assumed I would go into space, Jackie," she recalled years later, and that's despite the fact that there were no women, and it was all white males. And, in fact, I thought that was one of the dumbest things in the world. She didn't say it with bitterness. She said it with impatience, as though the world was simply behind schedule. As soon as Mae Jemison learned to read, she went to the library, not for storybooks, for science books. Books about evolution, about dinosaurs, about the mechanics of the human body, about the physics of stars and planets, about how the universe worked and why things were the way they were. She was not just curious. She was hungry. The kind of intellectual hunger that doesn't wait for school to provide what it needs, that goes looking on its own, in libraries, in museums, in conversations with anyone who would engage seriously with a child who asked serious questions. When she was 8 years old, her mother enrolled her in beginner ballet at the Sadie Bruce Dance Academy. Now, here's the moment where most stories about Mae Jemison would draw a distinction. Here is where most tellings would say, she was a scientist and also happened to like dance, as though the two things lived in separate rooms in her mind. But Mae Jemison has always insisted that is wrong. She didn't see dance and science as opposites, as a left brain and a right brain, as two different kinds of people. She saw them as the same thing. Both required observation of how bodies move of how forces act, of how pattern and structure create something larger than themselves. Both require discipline, the kind that shows up every single day, whether you feel like it or not, and does the work. Both required creativity, the ability to see beyond what exists toward what could exist. She continued dancing throughout her childhood, modern, jazz, Haitian, African, Brazilian, taking classes at the Jane Addams Hull House Community Center while simultaneously excelling at every science she touched. At Morgan Park High School, she investigated sickle cell anemia for a science fair project and was so thorough that the chief lab technician at Cook County Hospital took her on as a mentee. She won the citywide science competition. She was on the honor roll every semester. She graduated at the age of 16, younger than almost every one of her classmates, with a scholarship to Stanford University in California. 16 years old. Going to Stanford with a National Achievement Scholarship. And she nearly didn't go because she was afraid she wasn't ready. Her mother looked at her and said, "Mae, you are ready." She went. Stanford University. Palo Alto, California. 1973. A 16-year-old black girl from Chicago's South Side arrived on one of the most prestigious campuses in the world, carrying a scholarship, and her mother's certainty, and a vision of her future that did not fit any single category. Stanford was not always welcoming. Mae Jemison later described professors who treated her not based on her intelligence, but on their assumptions about what a young black woman could accomplish. Some dismissed her questions. Some seemed surprised she was there at all. She did not accept that. She became president of the Black Students Union, using the position not just as a personal platform, but as a lever to improve the experience of every black student on campus. She choreographed a full performing arts production, Out of the Shadows, a piece that explored the African American experience through movement and music, that she both directed and danced in. She studied Swahili. She took modern dance, jive, swing, Haitian, African, and Brazilian dance classes. She acted in a play and a musical. And she was completing a double major simultaneously in chemical engineering and African American studies. During her senior year, she faced the choice that would define the next chapter of her life. She had been offered the chance to pursue professional dance. She was good enough. Good enough that the choice was real, not a fantasy. But she had also never let go of medicine. And she had never let go of space. People told her she had to choose. She chose medicine, with the understanding that dance was not something she was leaving behind, only something she was carrying forward in a different form. She graduated from Stanford in 1977. Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. Bachelor of Arts in African American Studies. Both degrees. Full credit. She was 20 years old. And she enrolled at Cornell Medical School. Cornell University Medical College. New York City. Mae Jemison arrived at medical school already knowing that medicine, for her, was not going to be practiced inside the walls of an American hospital. She was going to take it to the world. During her years at Cornell, she traveled to Cuba, leading a health study funded by the American Medical Student Association. She went to Kenya, working with flying doctors in East Africa. She worked at a Cambodian refugee camp in Thailand, providing primary medical care to people who had fled violence and starvation in conditions that had nothing in common with a well-equipped American clinic. Think about what it takes to work in a refugee camp as a medical student. You are not there for a grade. You are not there for a line on a resume. You are there because real people, people who have lost everything, are depending on whatever you know and whatever you can do, in conditions where the usual scaffolding of medicine, the labs, the equipment, the backup, simply does not exist. And you do it anyway. She also continued dancing, enrolling in classes at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York during her medical training. She became president of the Cornell chapter of the Student National Medical Association. She organized regional health fairs. And in 1981, after 4 years of all of this, Mae Jemison graduated from Cornell Medical College with a doctorate in medicine. She was 24 years old, an MD, with field experience in 3 continents, with 2 bachelor's degrees, and a dream she still hadn't gotten to yet. After graduating, Mae Jemison completed a 1-year rotating internship at the Los Angeles County and University of Southern California Medical Center, one of the largest public hospitals in the country, where she trained across multiple specialties, seeing the full breadth of what medicine looked like in an urban American environment. Then she joined a general practice, working as a primary care doctor. She was a good doctor. She was a thorough doctor. But something was still pulling at her. She had always known she wanted to work in the developing world, not just visit it. Not just pass through as a student volunteer, but live there. Work there. Commit to it. In 1983, she applied to the Peace Corps, and at 26 years old, she became the Area Peace Corps Medical Officer for Sierra Leone and Liberia, 2 countries on the west coast of Africa, each carrying the weight of histories shaped by colonialism, poverty, and inadequate healthcare infrastructure. Her job was not simple. She was responsible for the health of every single U.S. Peace Corps volunteer and staff member and embassy personnel in Sierra Leone and all Peace Corps volunteers in Liberia. She managed a medical office, a laboratory, a pharmacy, and a team of medical staff, while also serving as the primary care doctor for more than 600 people across 2 countries, on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 2.5 years. She described the experience in her own words. In a place that could be so unforgiving of mistakes, I gained flexibility, knowledge, interpersonal relationship skills, and an appreciation of the challenges life poses to so many people on this planet. And there were moments, real, life or death moments, that tested everything she had. Within the first 2 weeks of arriving in Sierra Leone, a Peace Corps volunteer fell dangerously ill. Another doctor had diagnosed malaria. The volunteer was put on treatment. But after 24 hours, it wasn't working. He was getting worse. Mae Jemison examined the man herself. In the dark, after a power failure in the hospital, using a flashlight, rummaging through the medical unit's supplies, and she was not satisfied with the malaria diagnosis. She believed it was meningitis, with life-threatening complications that could not be successfully treated in Sierra Leone. So, she made a call. At 2 o'clock in the morning, she ordered a military medical evacuation. An Air Force hospital plane, based in Germany. Just initiating the process cost $80,000. She made the call anyway. The man was flown to Germany. She was right. He survived. That is who Mae Jemison was. Long before anyone outside her immediate world knew her name. While Mae Jemison was in Sierra Leone, something happened back home that she heard about through news reports and the slow trickle of information that reached West Africa in 1983. June 18, 1983, Sally Ride became the first American woman to travel to space. Jemison heard about it, and something that had been quietly waiting in her since childhood, since the planetarium, since the science books in the library, since the night sky she had stared at as a little girl in Chicago. Reignited. She had always assumed she would go to space. Sally Ride had just shown that the door was no longer completely sealed. In October 1985, having returned from the Peace Corps, having settled in Los Angeles as a general practitioner, having also enrolled in graduate-level engineering courses because she knew the application to NASA would require it. Mae Jemison applied to NASA's astronaut training program. And then, on January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart 73 seconds after launch. 7 astronauts. Gone. In an instant. NASA shut down the selection process. Mae Jemison's application, along with all the others, was put on hold. She went back to work. She continued practicing medicine. She continued her engineering studies. She waited. In 1987, NASA reopened the application process. 2,079 people applied. 15 were selected. Mae Jemison was one of them. On June 4th, 1987, she became the first African-American woman ever admitted to NASA's astronaut training program. She was 30 years old. She had a medical degree, a chemical engineering degree, an African American studies degree, 2.5 years of field medicine in West Africa, graduate engineering coursework, and a lifelong dream she had never stopped carrying. Through every obstacle, every detour, every year the world had told her to be more realistic about what she was. She was going to space. NASA's astronaut training program is not designed to be comfortable. It is designed to reveal, under pressure, exactly what you are made of. Candidates undergo a year of intensive training, covering everything from orbital mechanics to emergency procedures, from spacewalk operations to Russian language, from aviation to survival training in open water. Mae Jemison thrived. She was assigned as a mission specialist, a role designed for scientists and engineers whose primary function is not flying the spacecraft, but conducting the scientific research that justifies the mission. After completing her initial training in 1988, she worked at Kennedy Space Center as a support crew member for shuttle missions, doing the ground-level technical work that keeps a space program running, systems checks, procedure reviews, crew support during launches. And she waited for her assignment. It came. She was assigned to STS-47, the Spacelab J mission, a joint American and Japanese spaceflight that would carry the Spacelab Japan laboratory module into orbit, a pressurized research lab that would be operated around the clock by a crew split into 2 shifts. The mission would carry 43 experiments in material science, life sciences, and biotechnology, conducted in the microgravity environment of Earth orbit. Mae Jemison's specific assignments included experiments studying weightlessness and motion sickness on the human body, bone cells, frog embryo development, and a range of investigations that bridged engineering and medicine in exactly the way her entire career had been built to do. She was part of the Blue Shift, working overnight hours, and she had a tradition she carried with her into every shift. She opened communications with the salute. Hailing frequencies open. The phrase is from Star Trek, the show she had watched as a child, the show that had shown her a future where a black woman, Lieutenant Uhura, sat on the bridge of a starship, operating communications for a crew exploring the universe. She had watched that show and believed, not metaphorically, not aspirationally, but literally and concretely, that this was where she was going. And now she was there, opening hailing frequencies. From orbit. The morning of September 12, 1992, Kennedy Space Center's Launch Pad 39B. The Space Shuttle Endeavour stands on the base in the early Florida morning, her orange external tank catching the sunrise, two white solid rocket boosters flanking the orbiter, the whole assembly 184 feet tall, a machine built to do the impossible on a schedule. This was Endeavour's second scheduled mission. This was the 50th flight in Space Shuttle program history. And it would be the first on-time shuttle launch without a delay since 1985, 7 years earlier. The 7-member crew had been awake since before dawn. Commander Robert Gibson, pilot Curtis Brown, payload Commander Mark Lee, mission specialists Jerome Apt, Jan Davis, and Mae Jemison, and payload specialist Mamoru Mori, the first Japanese citizen to fly aboard the shuttle. This was also the only shuttle mission in history where a married couple flew together, Mark Lee and Jan Davis, a situation NASA had tried to prevent, but ultimately allowed because their relationship had only become known after they were already assigned. 7 people. From 3 countries. On the 50th mission. On a clear Florida morning. Before she suited up, Mae Jemison packed the items she was carrying to space. She carried a poster from the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, the dance company where she had taken classes in New York during medical school. She carried a West African statuette, a small carved figure that represented a connection to the continent where she had spent 2.5 years saving lives. And she carried a photograph. A photograph of Bessie Coleman, the first black woman in the world to earn a pilot's license. The woman who had been carried to space in the breast pocket of Mae Jemison's imagination since she was a child. Now carried physically, in orbit, 66 years after Bessie Coleman died. At 10:23 in the morning, the engines ignited. The sound alone, if you were standing close enough to feel it in your chest rather than simply hear it, was described by witnesses as less like a noise and more like the earth itself clearing its throat. Endeavour rose from the pad, climbed through the Florida sky, passed through the clouds, accelerated, and carried Mae Carol Jemison, the scientist who danced, the doctor who saved lives in the dark with a flashlight in Sierra Leone, the girl who put her hands on her hips in kindergarten and said no, she meant a scientist, into the sky, and then beyond the sky, and then into space. The Space Shuttle Endeavour reached an orbital altitude of approximately 166 nautical miles above the Earth for 8 days, from September 12th to September 20th, 1992. Mae Jemison lived and worked in the Spacelab Japan Laboratory Module, a pressurized cylinder attached to the shuttle's payload bay, conducting scientific experiments in conditions that cannot be replicated anywhere on the surface of this planet. Microgravity. The state of apparent weightlessness experienced in orbit, where you and everything around you are in freefall together, and the sensation of weight simply disappears. Mae Jemison studied how the human body responds to this environment. She conducted experiments on herself, measuring her own physiological responses to weightlessness, contributing data that would help future space travelers understand and manage the effects of long-duration spaceflight on the human body. She studied motion sickness, one of the most common and debilitating conditions experienced by astronauts in the first days of spaceflight. She studied bone cells, examining how the skeleton responds when it no longer needs to resist gravity. She worked on frog embryo development, watching how the fundamental processes of life unfold differently in microgravity, in one of the stranger and more beautiful experiments of the mission. The crew was split into red and blue shifts, operating around the clock, so the Space Lab laboratory was never idle. On September 16th, midway through the mission, Mae Jemison spoke live from orbit to students at a Chicago elementary school at an event hosted by NASA and the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. Think about what that was. A black woman from Chicago's South Side and in space, looking down at the curve of the Earth below her, speaking live to children in the city where she grew up, the city where National Guard soldiers had sometimes patrolled her neighborhood. Telling those children, by simply being there, that the ceiling they had been given was not real. In 190 hours, 30 minutes, and 23 seconds of spaceflight, Endeavour orbited the Earth 127 times. On September 20th, 1992, at 8:53 in the morning, Endeavour touched down on runway 33 at Kennedy Space Center. On time. On target. Mission complete. Mae Jemison stepped off that shuttle, carrying Bessie Coleman's photograph and a statuette from West Africa and a poster from the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater and 127 orbits of the Earth. Back onto the ground. Here is the thing that tells you everything about Mae Jemison after becoming the first African-American woman to travel to space after the press conferences and the awards and the recognition. She left. Not because she was done, but because she had more to do. And the next thing she wanted to do could not be done from inside NASA. In March 1993, 6 months after returning from space, Mae Jemison resigned from NASA. She was 36 years old. She founded the Jemison Group, a private technology company with a mission statement unlike anything in the typical corporate playbook: to research, develop, and implement advanced technologies suited to the social, political, cultural, and economic context of the individual, especially for the developing world. Not just technology. Technology that was actually useful to people in the places where technology was hardest to access. She worked on satellite-based telecommunication systems to improve healthcare delivery in West Africa. She worked on solar energy systems for developing countries. She founded Biosentient Corporation, a company developing wearable health monitoring equipment. She taught environmental studies at Dartmouth College for 7 years. She created The Earth We Share, an international science camp for students aged 12 to 16, focused on building science literacy and problem-solving skills in young people who might not otherwise have access to serious science education. She appeared in a 1993 episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation by personal invitation from LeVar Burton, becoming the first real astronaut to appear in the franchise that had first shown her, as a child, that a black woman could belong in the stars. She has been inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, the International Space Hall of Fame. She has received honorary doctorates from institutions including Princeton, Dartmouth, and Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Schools have been named for her. Museums have been named for her. And in 2012, she was selected to lead the 100-Year Starship Project, a DARPA-funded initiative whose goal is, straightforwardly, to make human interstellar travel possible within the next 100 years. She is not trying to get to the moon. She is trying to get to another star. And based on everything this woman has done, I would not bet against her. I want to stay with something for a moment. Something that runs through Mae Jemison's story from the very beginning, and that I think is the most important thing she teaches us. Her kindergarten teacher asked the class what they wanted to be when they grew up. Mae said scientist. The teacher said, "Don't you mean a nurse?" Now, in the teacher's defense, she was probably trying to be helpful. She was looking at a little black girl in 1961 and trying to guide her towards something achievable, something realistic, something the world was more likely to allow. And she was wrong. Not because being a nurse is wrong, but because she looked at that child, and instead of seeing what that child actually was, she saw what the world had decided people like that child were allowed to become. And Mae Jemison, 5 years old, put her hands on her hips and said no. That refusal, that simple, clear 5-year-old refusal to accept the world's assessment of what she was permitted to aspire to, is the entire story. Not because she was exceptional from birth, but because she refused to be small. And then, for the next 30 years, she backed up that refusal with work. She studied when studying was hard She traveled when traveling was uncomfortable. She stayed in West Africa on call 24 hours a day when she could have been building a comfortable career in an American hospital. She took the engineering classes after medical school. She reapplied to NASA after Challenger, after the program was shut down, after the world reminded everyone how dangerous this dream could be. She kept dancing through medical school. She kept carrying Bessie Coleman's photograph. She never narrowed. She never simplified herself for the comfort of other people. She was a scientist and a dancer, an engineer and a doctor, an astronaut and a humanitarian, a person who went to space and a person who worked by flashlight in a hospital with no power in Sierra Leone. All of it, at once, without apology. Mae Jemison once said something that I have thought about for a very long time. She said, "When I'm asked about the relevance to Black people of what I do, I take that as an affront. It presupposes that Black people have never been involved in exploring the heavens, but this is not so." She was right. It is not so. It has never been so. And yet the story that gets told, the story of who belongs in science and medicine and space and exploration, has for too long been a story with too few faces. Mae Jemison changed that story. Not by asking permission, not by waiting for the story to change on its own, but by simply, with extraordinary preparation, extraordinary persistence, and an extraordinary refusal to be anyone other than exactly who she was, inserting herself into it. She carried Bessie Coleman to space in her pocket. and someone watching Mae Jemison launch. Some child sitting in front of a television set in 1992 will one day carry Mae Jemison somewhere that none of us can yet imagine. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. One person refuses the ceiling, and then another person, who needed to see that it was possible to refuse, refuses the next ceiling, and then another, and then another, until the ceilings run out. Whatever you are facing right now, whatever room you are in that doesn't seem to have been designed with you in mind, whatever teacher or employer or system has looked at you and seen someone smaller than you actually are, I want you to remember Mae Jemison in kindergarten. 5 years old, hands on her hips. No, I mean a scientist. You are allowed to mean exactly what you mean. You are allowed to be exactly what you are. All of it. At once. The scientist and the dancer. The engineer and the dreamer. The person who serves others and the person who reaches for the stars. You do not have to choose. Mae Jemison didn't. And she went to space. On September 12th, 1992, when Endeavour cleared the launch pad, when the shuttle carrying Mae Carol Jemison rose through the Florida sky, the girl from Chicago's South Side, the girl the world had tried to make smaller, the girl who danced and studied and practiced medicine in the dark and came home and studied some more, went to space. And 2 days later, floating above the Earth at 166 nautical miles altitude, orbiting the planet at 17,000 miles per hour, she looked out the window of the Spacelab module, down at the curve of the blue and white world below her. And she thought of the Adler Planetarium and the library on the south side, and her mother, and Bessie Coleman, Lieutenant Uhura, and a kindergarten teacher who had pointed her toward a smaller life, and who could not have imagined, on that ordinary classroom morning, that the little girl who said no was going to end up here, 127 times around the Earth. Hailing frequencies open. If this story moved you, share it with a young person who has been told to be more realistic, with someone who has been asked to choose between two things they love, with a version of yourself that still believes the ceiling is real. Mae Jemison's life is the proof, from kindergarten to orbit, that it isn't. Subscribe for more stories like this, because we are just getting started. And until then, reach.